Sorry, what did you say?
588.
Start. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Parashat Shemini, the Torah portion of today. It's the key that many rabbis speaks. It's the story of the death of two sons of Aaron. Before we go to that, since today it's also Yom HaShoah, it's the Memorial Day for the Holocaust, and in conjunction to this subject, which is the sudden death of the two sons of Aaron, I will start with the Mishnah and then we go to the Parshat Shemini. Le'ilu Nishmat, in memory of first and foremost the 1.5 million children that die during the Shoah, during the Holocaust, and also all the others that passed away today. I choose this Mishnah because it's dealing with the same subject we're going to deal later, which is God's Inscrutable Will. Let's start with the Mishnah. Sota, Tractate Soda, chapter 5. Bo bayom darash Rabbi Yoshua ben Horkenus. The same day Rabbi Yoshua ben Horkenus expounded. Lo avad Iyov et HaKadosh Baruch Hu ela me'ahava. Iyov, meaning the biblical Job, served the Holy One, blessed be He, only out of love. Shene'emar, they said, Hen yikteleni lo yayachel. This is a very important sentence. You hear it in many other faith groups. They're using this word of Job, and many millions or even billions people follow and study the book of Job. So they said here, though he slays me, which is, it's like God holding the sword, the knife, or in a sense a fellow holding, still yet I'll wait him. First, miracle can happen, but it's not speaking about miracle that the person will be saved, especially in a time of crisis. It's speaking about faith in God, despite challenges or tremendous challenges. So the Mishnah here speaks about two different levels of faith. Highest level, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua ben Horkenus, that he loved God in such a level that no matter what happened, he remained faithful to God. One opinion. ועדיין הדבר שקול לו, but should you be doubtful whether the meaning is I will, because the sentence said, yet I will await him, as a statement, or as a question, meaning you can read a sentence like in any text and you can twist it in many ways. Should you say, yet I will wait him, which means he's still about to slay me and I still wait for him, or it's a statement. What's the difference? Obvious. The difference is, if you still wait him and you have a question mark, it means that it's enough already. Many of you know that right after the Holocaust, there are people who lost their faith. There are people who became more observant after the Shoah. So it is no one basically remained exactly the same as they are before the war. So here is a question of statement. Remember, this Mishnah, it's the first and second century, so we talk about 2,000 years ago statements from the rabbis. But they're speaking about the faith, the value of faith. So one said, no, you don't understand it. He meant to put a question mark at the end of the statement. What does that mean? So if you read the book of Job, you see in the illustration, which is the Talmud asks if is that for real or it's not for real, but that makes no difference for our purposes. So they said that Job was a man that has everything, that is a family, wife, livestock, prosperity, children, everything, good health, and he brought offering to God, and he was a good person, and he was a generous person, and he reached a level of righteousness even with all of his wealth, that the Satan, which again many religions take it in many different directions, but in our simple way, came before God. It's like an entity that we call the whatever, evil entity or Satan. And he said to God, wait a second, what's the big deal? You gave him everything. But let's see if this Job remain faithful if you're going to take something from him. It is like, in all my years in rabbinate, I try to tell people, you know, you wake up in the morning and you register in your brain how the day is going to be. If you're going to say to yourself, it's going to be a great day, so it's basically going to be a great day. If you start having negative thoughts from the very beginning, it's very hard to overcome them during the day. Now, what happened here, it's a situation that Job did not fully ready for that situation. What does that mean? God gave him all this wealth. Now it's a challenge. So what's the point of challenge? Point of challenge is to prove to himself, to Job, not to God, because in that sense God is everything, so God knew the outcome. But for us, in a sense, for our understanding of the character, basically of character of ourselves, is what happened to a person and to society when a person is wealthy versus the person rich. The person has a good health versus person in a great need. And the second level is what exactly happened to a person in his or her faith in God and faith in themselves when they have challenges, how they handle challenges. Yesterday they asked me to officiate a funeral of someone who's not a member, from different state, relatively young person, at his 40s, committed suicide. Try to figure it out. Why a professional person with wife and children and family and everything is doing such a thing? And the point I try to say is there are people who cannot handle challenges. One of the idea of my life training in the army, for example, is in a certain units they check how far you can go with your faith, how much you can handle difficulty, how far you go with your strength despite challenges. It's a very serious trials that they never be sure for 100%, but they can train you or they check you, and then not too many finishing those courses because not everyone respond to challenges the same as others. So God in that sense said to Eov, I'm using Eov instead of Job, he said, that's the Hebrew word, he said to Eov, he said to Satan, go and do whatever you feel it need to be done for Eov, but don't kill him, don't take away his life. Let's see what happens. And in that sense is a dialogue between God and Satan. God said to Satan, I'll prove you that I'm right, that he's a righteous man. And Satan said, he is a righteous man just because you gave him everything, but if you're not, then it's different. I have once a conversation with someone, unhappy individual, negative, murmuring all day. So, oh, the house is not big enough, the car is not good enough, etc. That person, unintentionally, I said to that person, you know, you should be thankful. You know, there are people who have no home, there are people who have no car. If you get stuck in traffic, thank God that you have a car. If you have, you know, small home, thank God that you have a house. So I don't know how serious he and his wife took it, but then when they are in a situation that one of them lost his job and they have the issue of paying the mortgage and they are that close for foreclosure, then they are able somehow to refinance and to go on in life. Now they are most happy in the world that they kept the house, they're most happy in the world that they have a car, they're most happy in the world that one of them have a house, one of them has a job. So in that sense, Satan gave the green light to go and do something. So it started with his prosperity. He lost the livestock. He started losing part of his family. He started losing part of his health, and it deteriorated. He reached a point that he lost everything. And here is a very deep point that the rabbis always try to compare his character to Abraham and Sarah. Because Abraham remained faithful. Even God asked him to leave everything, to be absolutely lonely and to leave his homeland to go to an unknown place. He remained faithful to God. Job started expressing bitterness. And when his 3 friends came and tried to comfort him, he started expressing his anger. What did I do wrong? God, what you're doing to me? Why this happened to me? And he did not accept it. Even some of his friends came from far away, tried to comfort him. He did not accept it, their word of consolation, until the very end of the book. God himself came to him, and God pulled him out and showed him the world in a different view. And then Job comforted, and then God granted him a new family, and everything restored, a happy ending at the end of the book. So in that sense, the first opinion is that Job was the highest level. He loved God and he trusted him, and he was always there in the level of love. Others, especially those who read carefully all the dialogue in the book and all his doubts and questioning and complaining and murmuring over things, even it was a righteous man that accepting God, but it was very embittered, they like to put a question mark in that statement, which is, in the Bible you don't have a punctuation with questions and exclamations, you just have the sentence. So they hold it should be a question, which is, though he slays me, yet I'll await him? Come on. Like people saw how they took their loved one and to the Auschwitz, to crematory, they still kept saying Shema Israel. It's very difficult. So they answer and they respond. The scripture teaches, they said, Ad egva, till I die, I will not put away my integrity from me, which is another sentence much later in that book of Job, chapter 27, teaching that he did so out of love. So again, so far we understand that in this dialogue, one rabbi wasn't so sure, but the head rabbi said that Job was the highest level who loved God under any circumstance. For sure, other rabbis disagree with that. Rabbi HaShoah said, who removed the dust from your eyes? Which means, how come you come to these conclusions? It's like a strong statement. Right? You're wrong. He said, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, for you will expound all your days that Job served omnipresent only out of fear. As it said, and this is the very beginning when God presented him to Satan in that sense, so God called him a wholehearted and upright man, one that fears God and shuns evil. So since they use the word fear, and did not Yoshua, the prophet of your prophet, teaches that they did so out of love. So basically, it wasn't a person that served God out of love. In this opinion, he did it out of fear. It's like a person stop at the red light because he's afraid to get a ticket. Not because he's stopping at the red light, that's the right thing. You figure out the intersection is empty. There's nobody here, it's 2 in the morning, right? So I should pass my car and go on. But he stopped at the red light. Why he's doing that? Because he's afraid to get a ticket. Right? So it's 2 different attitudes why Job behave in a certain way. One, so we conclude in that sense of the Mishnah, that there are 2 levels. There is level of people that does something in sense of revering God, owing God, afraid of the punishment. There are people who does that because they really love. Okay. So with that in mind, we go now to a very puzzling question, which is in the Torah portion of Shemini. They say that everything was lovely. It was the 8th day, Moshe Rabbeinu summoned Aaron, his son, the elder of Israel. He asked them to take the offering and prepare themselves. And it was a very nice celebration. And in the next page, 22, Aaron raised his hand toward the people and blessed them. Then he descended from having performed the sin offering, the elevation offering, and the peace offering. Moshe and Aaron came to the tent of meeting, and they went out, and they blessed the people, and the glory of Hashem appeared to the entire people. So everything looks lovely. All of a sudden, after Aaron's blessing and the divine pleasant, and God gave the Kohanim the eternal commandment of conferring the priestly blessing upon the Jewish people, and it's a beautiful thing. All of a sudden, a fire went forth before God and consumed upon the altar, the elevating offering, and the faith. So, the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, took each of his fire pan, and they put fire on them, and they placed incense upon them, and they brought before God, but the Torah called it an alien fire, which we need to understand that word, the alien fire, that he, meaning God, had not commanded them. A fire came forth from before God and consumed them, and they died before Hashem. Right? And then Moses said to Aaron, of this did Hashem speak, saying, I will sanctify through this who are nearest me, so I'll be honored before the entire people. And Aaron was silent. Terrible. Right? Terrible death. So for sure, the same way as the great joy of the inauguration and the pleasant of the peak of the pleasant of celebration, boom, tragedy happened. Here was the two sons of Aaron, the outstanding sons of the nation, perform, and they looked like an unauthorized service and lost their life. Right? And the behavior of Moshe and Aaron in the face of the tremendous loss, it's a subject of discussion. What exactly they did, and why did Nadav and Avihu take upon themselves to do it, and why they died. So there is a lot of ideas why it happened. The simple way to look at that, and I encourage you to read my book Table Talk. I elaborate like 10 reasons that the rabbis mentioned, but to abbreviate, to summarize it, the key point here, it's an alien fire. It's a famous Rabbi Ishmael who hold that they use fire from the altar, but it was alien because they had not been bidden to offer. That's opinion. And then the Rabbi Akiva hold that the fire was literally alien because it does not come from the altar. And Rabbi Eliezer that said that they did which called Moreh Halacha Bifnei Rabbo. They didn't ask the teacher Moses before they did it. So again, you can go negative or positive. Why it happens? It's like Eov asked, why me? Why things happen a certain way? If you pay attention when someone, and that's the way the world runs, and someone lost his loved one, so we have the Kriya, the tearing the garments. It's a little different. Non-observant, they just take something and tear it. Very observant, they're really tearing a garment, they're really taking a shirt or suit or something and tearing it. It starts in the Bible, the story of Bereshit with Yaakov. When he heard he lost his son Yosef, he tore his garment and he sat and he mourned over that. But upon doing that, we have a special bracha, special blessing. We said, blessed are you, God, Master of the universe, who is the true judge. Which means we are basically accepting God's inscrutable will. We're accepting the judgment, even it's tough, even it's sometimes very hard. Yes, there are situations a person died at 120 and all his life was marvelous, so it's easy on the family, versus, God forbid, should never happen to anyone, but that's the way it is. Unfortunately, the worst thing is someone bury his own child, that it's unbearable pain and undescribable pain. And you try to figure out where is God in the picture. It's very painful. So here the rabbis try to figure out what exactly happened with the two sons of Aaron. And the way that the Torah describes it's so succinct, it's so short, that can drive to so many conclusions. And that's the reason that, in a way, the Torah left it open for discussion. There are basically at least 10th of explanations among the rabbis. Negative, positive. It's all kind of idea. But there are 2 points that they always go after. The cause for the death and the death itself. Why is that? It's because in Jewish teaching, this life is short and there is continuation. It's olam haba. Judaism believes that even you burying the physical body, the soul never dies. However, we believe that there is a series of 11 months, there is a series of cleansing, we need to say prayer, need to say mourner's kaddish. It's a process. It's a process of the healing for the family, and it's a process to elevating the soul. In that sense, there are souls, for example, evil people, World War II criminals, etc., that in our belief they never have peace. The soul will suffer forever for the terrible thing that the body and the soul together committed during the brevity of their lives here. But most of the quote-unquote people, in our belief, they are basically going to a certain process and then they're resting in peace. We call it, resting in peace in some languages. So what happened, it's because it's sometimes so clear that it's beyond our control. Those questions come up all the times. King Saul died. Does that mean that he will never see peace, he never see a world to come because things wasn't good before that? Or after his passing is going to be in the olam haba, in the world to come? So for example in Saul we just studied yesterday in the Gemara, in Brachot, that tells us that no, Saul, even he made some mistakes, like all of us, yet he is among the righteous in the world to come. In other words, there is a very strong belief that the most can happen 11 months, the person is resting in peace after that. Whenever the 11 months is over, that's over, it's cleaning, and it's rest in peace. So what we need to know for ourselves, in our very best, for our own sake, the reason, and then we need to know what's happened to them after that, either punishment or something happened. What's the options? Is that a punishment? And if yes, why? Is that punishment, if you said yes, it's because of the people, because of their relationship with the other people, or because of themselves? And then, if you tell me that it's punishment, it means that they die and they are now righteous souls. Or if you say that it's not punishment, and it's just like became so holy that they are, that they are part of the divine or whatever you call it, then what exactly the purpose of all of that to us? Why we need to read it? So the rabbis have a lot of explanations. Let me share with you some of them. The positive attitude said that the two sons of Aaron were righteous. They meant well, but they overdo what they're supposed to do. Which means they're supposed to do certain tasks, they overstay the boundaries. So now I'm expecting you to ask a question, is that the case? So why is such a severe punishment? The punishment is not meeting the crime. If they overdo good, it's hard to accept. But basically that's one school of thought that said that they have to be strict of what they are commanded to do, and they did it. Most of the rabbis blaming them for violating the proper decorum of services, the violating the proper behavior, etc. Some opinion. When they entered the house of worship, at that time it was the temporary temple, okay? They belittle that, because they get used to that. They get, you know, like in a manner of how do you say it? It's like you go to a comedy show and you go to a house of worship. Is the same thing. Like you're treating everything as a joke, it's a fun, it's nothing serious, etc., etc. And it was wrong. But even you say that it's wrong, and it's very hard to convey that because of that they die. You can say they can have punishment, they can have diseases, but why so? It's like Eov asked, why I'm punished? What did I do wrong? Right? What exactly? One point is that they enter in an inappropriate dress to the temple. You know, the priests have garments. There is 4 garments and there is 8 garment for the high priest, and it has to be presentable, neat, nice, and very to create a respect, even just for their external appearance. It should create a certain decorum, certain respect, and they enter in a dress that was very inappropriate.
Who said that?
The rabbis in the Talmud.
So
I'm presenting to you different opinions.
It's just an opinion. Okay,
since the Torah used the word alien fire, and since the Torah expressed such a severe punishment of death, for sure it's opened the door for discussion, at least for us to try to comprehend, try to understand God's inscrutable will. We can always say, we don't know, goodbye, period. But the subject of our discussion is, as much as we're accepting, but we feel that if we learn something about God's way or certain things, it maybe help us in our own life. So as I said, this is one opinion, that they behave inappropriately. Another opinion, they say that they dress inappropriately. Another opinion, it's a very famous, whatever I'm telling you is the Talmud or rabbinic writing, it's nothing in that sense for me. Another opinion, that they are intoxicated. That's very common opinion among the many early sages. How do you know that? How they support that opinion? Because if you see in the sentence 6, after they pull the body out of the temple, then in sentence 6, Moses said to Aaron and his son Elazar and Itamar, because Aaron has 4 sons and 2 left, Elazar and Itamar, and he said, do not leave your heads unshorn, and do not rent your garments, that you do not die. So why he needs to say that if nothing happened? It means that something happened in a sense of either not dressing appropriately or not speaking appropriately, and now we warn the other 2, don't do what they okay. And then you use the word, and he, meaning God, become wrathful with the entire assembly. And you, brethren, the entire house of Israel, shall bewail the conflagration that Hashem ignites. So again, here, because they use the word, for example, you had unshorn, some said that it's connected to the certain talk or certain behavior that was inappropriate. Some said the garments inappropriate. But then you see something even fascinating in next page. They said, now it's one of the rare occasions in the Torah that Hashem, the God, spoke to Aharon. That's very rarely happened. Usually it's God talks to Moses. God said to Aaron, saying, do not drink intoxicating wine, you and your sons with you, when you come to the tent of meeting, and you not die. This is an eternal decree for your generations. So this is a word of God that said to Aaron. So most of the rabbis said, oh, here is the source for the problem. They are intoxicated, inappropriate. And you know what happened to someone who is intoxicated? They don't talk properly, they don't behave properly. And these are the people who are, you know, up there representing the people, and they doing all the rituals, and it's basically a shame, it's a shanda, it's embarrassment, the way that they are conducting and people feel very, feel very inappropriate, very, that it's not right. Now, as we said, that's one school of thought. The idea is, the Torah used earlier the word alien fire. Some rabbis said, let's separate. The idea of not entering intoxicated, we agree. But don't attribute the two sons of Aaron, even you tell me that they are intoxicated, to their death. We feel the reason for that is different. It's because it was alien fire. It's the use. I use the word that they used. The rabbi said, "Shel kahua mibeit hakiraim, velo mimizbeach hachitzon." They should take the offering to the external altar. That's the way they instructed, and they did it most probably on purpose to show either freshness or rebelliousness, or I'm not following you guys' orders, or whatever it is. They did it in a different location. It's called Beit HaKiraim. So some say that that was horrible. Now let's paint the picture, if that's the way they understand these rabbis. You have Moses and Aaron in the temple. They are in the leadership. They are in charge. You have the nation of Israel there. People. Right? Audience. And you have these two sons of Aaron came in, and let's say either Moses or Aaron or both said, take this altar, they take this offering and bring it from here to the external altar. And they said, no, we're taking the offering and put it from there. What do you understand? What they are basically doing? They are challenging the authority of the teachers. Can be Moses and Aaron or a high priest or any other teacher. Which wasn't just the insult and the challenging the teacher, it's basically challenging the whole authority and bringing somehow doubt in the hearts of the people, or mocking or belittling the authority of the leadership, which created a very bad atmosphere right away. And that's the reason some hold that God interfered and right away consumed them, to show the people that if someone crossed the line in such a level, and especially create Chilul Hashem, a public desecration of name of God, therefore there is a right away, is no other way to have a trial, is a punishment right away. That's opinion. But it's important to know. Those who follow this school of thought, they say that it's not just that. What they did, they used the word Hekrivu korban shelo nitztavu, which means they brought an offering that wasn't asked, which means, in a way, they did something against the authority there. The authority at that time was Moses and Aaron. And if you remember stories in the Torah, we have the story of Korach, that the earth swallowed them. We have several stories of people who challenged the authority at that time of the leadership of God, and the consequences right away. There is another school of thought. They said that all of their behavior, no matter if it's intoxication, if it's a challenging Moses and Aaron, if it's the way that they dress, if they certain things that they did inappropriate, the whole behavior was bad. And the option was not to make them not priests anymore. The option is either to finish that or not. And because they are born to a certain family, and because they have a certain responsibility, and because it's create such a tremendous consequences, and if it wasn't reaction right away of God, then the whole authority in the future of the whole decorum of services will be down. Okay, others rabbis. Don't think that that's the only opinions, there are other opinions. But each opinion carries some weight. Because remember, this is the word of Torah, so we believe that Torah is a divine Torah, that is a living Torah. It's not just ancient, something that in the past. Some say that they didn't marry. And it's a group of rabbis that hold this opinion. Again, it's a tradition, it's the idea that they are extremely arrogant. They are part of the priesthood family, and whoever they introduce to them, they felt that they are not reaching their level. and they are very much with themselves, and they because of that, it creates a very bad image of the priesthood. And it was just that another incident that like straw that broke the camel. It wasn't just incident at that moment. It was a background incidences that for years and years Aaron tried to convince them to get married, and whoever they introduced, it's not good enough for them, and they are singles, and it was a lot of baggages that preceded to that death. Others rabbis followed that, and they said it wasn't just the idea that they not married, it's the idea that they didn't have intent to have children. In a sense, in a priesthood, there is a very important the continuation, which is the high priest, like in that time it was Aharon, and then he has 4 sons, and then they should have sons, so from generation to generation you're teaching them, and they are so much in themselves they have no intent to do it, and they reach a point that basically there is no need for them if they don't intend to continue that holy work and teach it to the future. Again, as I said, you can take any reason that you feel more comfortable between the reason that they are rude or dispute their rabbis in public or their teachers in public, or the opinion, some hold very rash opinion that they are, before that incident, they are constantly instigated people against Moses and Aaron, and bad-mouthing the leadership of Moses and Aaron.
I mean, you know that from...
The Talmud brought all kind of sources. I just try to abbreviate what they said. And their goal was to take over the leadership. And part of their campaigning, it was a heavy instigation against Moses and Aaron. And therefore, because they are not nice to each other, and because they did all kind of things before that, that's the death. In other words, all of these who hold negatives, who hold that it was something that they did extremely wrong, and carry a lot of background. It wasn't just that. For sure, as I said earlier, there are those who hold very strongly that they are very enthusiastic, they are very devoted to Hashem, to God, and they saw fire from heaven, and they just, while they are in a service, it consumed them. It's like, in that sense, it wasn't a reason for them doing wrong. It can be simply like, they are close to the fire, and the fire came in to consume their offering, and it consumed them too, because the fire came down. But as we said, since the Torah said clearly the reason, at least that's the way it's written, but it said too many things in the Torah. They said between garments, behavior, and intoxications, so it opened the door to so many, like that God did not command them to the alien fire. God did not command them. In the Hebrew they use the word law, which means God told them not to do it, or the high priest told them and they did on purpose the opposite. So it's really so big in the opinions, and so it's hard to say what's involved. But what we learn from that is the idea that there is a lot of things that have direct results, direct consequences. The whole idea of their death and the effect that created to people, it shook the people. I can speak from experiences that sometimes you see people involved with a tremendous miracle in their lives, but you have two people that have two ways to take things. One of my friends, and now colleague, but he was together with me many years ago in the yeshiva. So he was driving in South Israel in a small car, and he was driving with his cousin, who was secular Jew, and it was a huge Bedouin, Arab Bedouin that drove a huge truck, and the truck came the other way, the other side, but huge, and it was nighttime. So to make long story short, the truck was so big that it was just step over them, and they start seeing their car were like getting schmutz, and more and more and more. So that guy, he was screaming Shema Yisrael. He thought that's the end. His wife was screaming like crazy, and the other guy was like out of his mind. Miraculously, the driver stopped the car because he saw the car is not moving properly. Really, the very, very last second. And then he came out, and he himself was so traumatized, and he heard the screaming behind the truck, and he called help. And to make long story short, it was a few heavy-duty fire trucks that need to break the whole roof and break part of the semi-trailer, the big truck, in order to get and to pull them out. But nothing happened to them. They are all saved. The car is kaput. Okay. So he told me they met a couple of weeks later. Right? That secular Jew, at that very moment, when that happened, was screaming Shema Yisrael and screaming God for help and everything. Then he talked to him, he says, no, you're now going to put the tefillin, you're going to pray, you're going to do something. And the guy said, why should I pray? You know, why? And he said, don't you see a few weeks ago what God did to you? Don't you think it's proper to say thank you and to pray and to do something? I think it's coincidence, he said. It just happened by incidents. It happens. Yeah, I agree that it's God, but, you know, I don't know. I have to think about it. And he never did anything. Which prove that you have two people. One cannot thank God for every second of his life that he is alive and not dead. And can't thanking God that he has now a wife and 2 kids. So they feel every second of their life it's a gift. And they're thanking God every second. The other guy, at the very moment he was present, and then the next thing you forget about it. That's the way it is. Here is the same thing. It happens that they did it, and you can take it many ways. So I would like to conclude this part by mentioning a few more contemporary opinion. One of them, it's speaking about fire that came from heaven. Fire came from heaven and consumed them. Fire came from heaven, it's a very hard concept. Because in the Torah, when they use fire happen from heaven, it's used for the 10 Commandments, it's used in a very high level. And that's one of the reasons that the rabbis are very careful with judging them, because since they use the word fire came from heaven, it's like, wow. So how do you know for sure that what you feel is right? For example, contemporaries, one of the rabbi, Rabbi Yitzhak Amara, who is a Sephardic rabbi, wrote the book Akedat Yitzhak. It's more contemporary. He said that since they express their doubt in their faith, and they are public leaders, and they didn't feel that the fire came from heaven, and they felt that they combined different incense, and that created fire that come up and consumed the. In other words, they doubt the whole concept that Moses and Aaron teach people that fire came from heaven. It's like the observant rabbis that say that the Torah is from heaven, and you have non-observant rabbis that say that the Torah is by people. You know, so there in that sense they say that this all the concept of I'm bringing a sacrificial offering and then fire comes from heaven and consume them. No, it's by us. We create those incense, and then we do like the Japanese. We have the consequence of the consequence, and suddenly fire came and did it. So, in other words, they create a certain fire to prove to people that the fire is not heavenly fire, is their own fire, and by that they create their own death. That's a very strong opinion, but it's dealing with the foundation of faith. I would like to conclude with the connection between the earliest time we speak about Job and the story of Moshe and Aaron, because one of the opinion that for many years I study it, and then every time I visit that opinion it's like, woo, very hard to comprehend. It's very different approach. So sit down for a second and take back, because this is a very, very extreme opinion, but it is an opinion, so we have to, I mentioned that opinion, by the way, in my book. If you read carefully the text, they die, and Moses said to Aaron, that's the word what God said, that I will be sanctified to those who are nearest me, and I shall be Aaron before the entire people, and Aaron was silent. So in a simple language, we interpret when a person is acquiesce, when he or she is silent, it's basically they agree. Or
he's struck down, poor
or
guy.
struck down, right? Silence. There is an opinion that hold that since at the very end of the book of Exodus, there are very painful story in our history, the story of the golden calf. And the golden calf, if you remember, the one who was involved was Aaron, which is, again, the Torah said that Moses prayed for him. The Torah said that he tried to delay the time. He asking people to bring the gold and silver. Women did not participate in that scene. But they created the wrong service of God. The wrong alien altar. Alien service that wasn't commanded. Yes, Aaron had a very pure intention. He knew that Moses will come. He knew that things would straighten out, but meanwhile he was under pressure, tried to buy time, he asked him to bring the gold and silver, etc., etc. But the Torah repeats so many times when they talk about the tabernacle and everything, they say that God commanded them, God commanded them. In that sense, Aaron did something that God did not commanded him to do. And then when Moses comes down and says, what is this? And Aaron tried to explain to him that he tried to buy time and he didn't mean to do it, and he was remorse, and he was, express himself in the most deepest sorrow. Yet the Torah don't mention any punishment to Aaron. The Torah just mentioned that all those people who changed their mind are fine. It was people who rebel and continue to dance around the golden calf. And Moses said, who is for God, come to me. And the tribe of Levi came. And he said, take your sword and kill your brothers. And 3,000 people died that day. It was a terrible crisis, etc., etc. And the tribe of Levi took over the leadership. Therefore, I assume that you are smart people, so you know what's coming, right? So there is an opinion that said that the punishment was for Aaron. That basically, in that sense, since it was in many ways a repetition of doing something that God did not commanded, and creating a public desecration, therefore their death, the punishment of their death, was much severer to Aaron and his wife than to the people who died. Because in that sense, in our belief, the minute the person died, he or she is no longer in the physical suffering. And if they die righteous, so for sure, in our belief, they are in the world to come as among the tzaddikim, among the righteous. So in that sense, who is punished? Who is suffering from now at the end of his life? Yeah. Aaron. So therefore, it's a very strong statement that Chazal said that when in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses described a rewind of the Torah, that's just review of all the Torah, so he said the sentence, V'gam be'aharon hit'anaf Hashem, that even with Aharon, the wrath of the Lord was strong. The rabbis interpreted as taking away his sons, which means that the sins of the two sons of Aaron reminded people the story of the egel, of the golden calf, and this severe punishment was a reminder to people and warned people that they should do exactly what they asked to, not more, not less.
What's the time lapse between the golden calf?
Very close. Very close. Because if you count the times that they are in the desert, and they count the time that if event, it's very close to each other. So the point that we try to say is, what we learn, what we derive from all of this learning today. So first and foremost, we say that this learning it's for all the 6 millions that died today in Paris, and is by all means is no word to describe the cruelty and this terrible death that befall upon our people, and we hope that that will never happen again. But what we did basically, we tried to serve God in the highest level of love, and we describe the big challenge aftermath to us as a people. How basically we take our faith, in which level. Do we take our faith in the highest level, like some rabbis hold, that even Eov took his crisis out of love and he remained even stronger with love to God? We're doing it out of fear, fear of death of 2 sons of Aaron, fear of death of something that happened. That's an open question. Thank you.